Hi there, thanks for talking to us. I was wondering if you'd tell me a bit about how you first heard about Jigsaw and how you got involved.
Okay, it's such a long time ago now, it's about 9-10 years ago now, so it's a bit hard to remember, you kind of push it to the back of your memory, but I think it was via my school, kind of came round, and I think Chris O'Leary came round and just had a chat with me about kind of what Jigsaw did, and I think my mum was quite keen to get me involved in it. She thought it might help for me to talk, so I think that was about it. It just came round to my house, had quite a nice homely chat, and then thought it'd be a laugh, so give it a go.
Do you remember what it was like to deal with bereavement at that time?
I think when you're that young, but you're still at an age where you're aware of what's going on, you deal with it in quite a matter-of-fact way. Well, I did anyway, because I understood completely what was going on. My dad was ill for about 2 years, and I knew the whole time what was going to happen, and I was sad, but I think particularly in terms of looking after my mum and stuff, because I was the only one that lived at home, you just deal with it in a very matter-of-fact way, and it only takes you until you get to kind of your teenage years to realise really the impact that's going to have on your life, I think.
How important do you think it is at that age to have someone to talk to and to go to?
Vital, I think. Particularly when you're trying to be strong for other people, I think it's quite important to have someone not involved that you can talk to, and that's why I think grief support is vital, particularly to children. I remember coming to the groups because I was 10, I was put into the older group, so I was with like really quite old teenagers, and I think at first I was a bit intimidated because there were people that were so much older than me, and there were like brothers and sisters and people who'd come with their siblings and their families who kind of had a connection already. So I think when I first arrived I was a bit taken aback, but because you find out that everyone's in the same position, you just immediately bond. So it was fine, but at first I was a bit like, oh no, they're going to laugh at me.
And was there any feeling of judgment at all, do you remember?
No, not at all. Even though not everyone's lost a parent or not everyone's lost a father, everyone's lost someone. And I don't think you come here with the mind to judge. I think you come here purely for your own kind of benefit, and then you realise that there are so many people who are in the same situation, if not worse than yours, that you immediately just bond together and try and help each other more than judge each other, definitely.
Do you remember anyone in particular that was part of the team that helped you out during that time?
Not really, because it's so difficult to kind of remember. I just know what helped me particularly was my brother joining in, because we have different dads, and his dad died soon after mine, and he became a buddy, and I think having him there, even though he wasn't helping me, having him part of the team as well, I felt a bit more like I could kind of stand on my own 2 feet, knowing I could run away there if anything went wrong.
What's your favourite memory of your involvement with Jigsaw4u?
Oh wow, you've got 10 years of experience here, that's very difficult. I think it has to be going to Sri Lanka after the tsunami. We had our national conference and stupidly brought it up as an idea as a kind of cocky 14-year-old, thought, yeah, that'd be great, you know, let's go and help people orphaned by the tsunami. And one of the MPs and patrons said, do it, let's do it, we can make this happen. And then we went over there not knowing what to expect, and it was just incredible. Definitely the best experience of my life so far.
And what impact has Jigsaw4u had on the lives of people around you?
A huge one, I would say. I mean, not just the grief support network that I work with, but I've worked with a lot of other kind of strains of Jigsaw, and I just see how it affects people in completely different ways and saves people from themselves a lot of the time. I know people who've been bereaved who have kind of gone down a downward spiral, could be years afterwards, and just knowing that you've got that sort of skills network, to put it in a kind of business term, to deal with it, I think is priceless, really.
What would you say is the most important thing that you've taken away from Jigsaw4u?
I think the most important thing is knowing that you're not alone, and also a kind of self-awareness that I've been bereaved since I lost my dad, and I think knowing how to cope, or not just how to cope, but knowing what you're feeling is normal is just such an important thing to have, I think.
And has Jigsaw4u given you any strategies for coping?
That, just accepting that what you're going through is completely expectable, and it could be anything. You know, you cope with things completely differently to how you cope with things when you're a child, and so I think that helps you throughout your life. And also helping other people to cope, I think, is quite a big thing that I've got from that, and just letting people know that you don't have to cry all the time. That's completely normal, and if you do cry all the time, that's also completely normal. So I think that's probably, for me, something that I've I like to take away from that.
Can you tell us a bit more about what happened while you were in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, sure. There was 4 young people and volunteers and Anne, and we went over for about 3 weeks and worked with various different villages and projects, just kind of sharing what we knew, because out there it was obviously very important to rebuild houses and rebuild communities, but no one had ever really thought about rebuilding the people. It's all very well having new houses, but if you've got broken children, like, the communities from then on are just not really going to have much hope. So we thought we could do a bit of that. We weren't received greatly by some of the villagers because obviously they were living in tents and we were coming in talking about grief support, and they just couldn't relate to the concept of counselling. Really, it was something that was completely new to them. But for the children, I think possibly life-changing to realise that someone actually wants to talk to you about your emotions and is actually worried about you, as opposed to kind of rebuilding homes and buildings and money and all of that, that I think the kids really benefited from someone wanting to know what they felt.
And what other aspects of Jigsaw4u have you been involved with?
Quite a few. I've been working at Jigsaw for about 10 years now. So I think I started doing conferences. Jigsaw started doing national conferences, but also before that smaller conferences. So just leading workshops to professionals, kind of telling them how I feel about how grief support services should be run. And a lot of people from schools and social services had never dealt with grief in this sort of way before. And I think young people-led projects weren't as popular then. So it was just kind of educating people on listening to children and young people, I think. And then I think when I was about 12, Jigsaw asked me to edit the grief support magazine called Our Lives. And it was just basically a way of getting in touch with kids, but also getting in touch with services about how we felt about issues that affected us. And we did features on particular things, like one was on PSHE in schools, because I'd found that it just wasn't even touched on, grief support as an issue. And I thought it was really important to get to schools and say, look, this is a really important issue in community development. Maybe you should think about getting it involved in your curriculum. So we did a massive issue about that. And that kind of relates to a lot of the things that came out on the DVD. So we tried to build with issues taken from the original DVD into the magazine for years, and it takes years for people to start to develop on them.
And you were involved in the original DVD?
Yes, I was. 10-year-old me was involved with the original DVD, basically talking about how I felt at the time. Obviously it was a lot more raw.
I went to school and my teacher hadn't told my class, and so everyone knew he was ill, and one of my friends asked me how he was, and then that was kind of upsetting.
So it was my initial kind of dealings with Jigsaw and my initial coping, really, and I don't think I had coped by then, looking back on it, but obviously I thought that I had. And just kind of talking about how Jigsaw had helped me and everyone else in different ways, I think. And that kind of relates to the school aspect of it, because schools dealt, in our experience, really badly with bereavement. And I think it was just a lack of understanding, because lots of teachers aren't going to have experienced what you've experienced. So it's going to be impossible for them to understand. So like one of the boys who's a few years younger than me brought up the fact that he was not allowed to do a Father's Day card because his dad had died, which obviously to all of us just seemed ridiculous. But to a teacher, they could be thinking they're doing the best thing by the child. So I think that was really important for us to get in touch with schools and be like, you know, you need to give children the option, which I think is the one thing that I've learned from Jigsaw, is that children are, you know, they're clever enough and self-aware enough to know what they want to do, or at least to be kind of given the benefit of asking, as opposed to just telling them what you think is best, because every child's going to be different. So.
And who's the favourite person you've met in all your dealings with Jigsaw4u?
Oh, that's mean. You can't ask me that. Anne Davies has been inspirational to me. A lot of the kids have been inspirational to me, kind of who've dealt with a lot of things that are even harder than things that I've dealt with. So they've been inspirational to me. And all the staff, I mean, everyone here has experienced similar or worse to something that you've experienced and come out of it amazingly. So I think everyone in Jigsaw is an inspiration.
I hear you've met Ed Davey through the campaign?
Yes, Ed Davey is a patron of Jigsaw. He's a Liberal Democrat MP. And I think my interview with him, it was a good few years ago now, we were just interviewing him for the magazine for Our Lives. and he told us about his parents. He lost both of his parents before he was 18, and I think talking to us, it dawned on him his relationship with us and how he could connect with us in bereavement and in that loneliness and isolation that he felt. Because at the time he didn't realise what he was feeling. I think probably until he was a lot older, and possibly until he'd kind of got in contact with people from Jigsaw, I think he realised and his emotions and how he felt, and that led him to deal with it in a better way, I think. And that was really inspirational to me as a 12, 13-year-old talking to an adult, an MP of all people, relating to me on an emotional level. I found that affected me a lot.
And finally, what advice would you give to anyone who's potentially interested in getting involved with Jigsaw4u?
Definitely go for it. I mean, you don't have to get involved as I have. You can just turn up to the groups and take away whatever you want from that. So I think there's something for everyone. If you want to just come and listen to what everyone else has to say, then if that's what you need to do, then definitely do it.
Have you enjoyed being part of Jigsaw4u?
Yes, of course I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't be back if I hadn't.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.